live. Today I have the honor of interviewing Priest the Nomad, a DC hip-hop pioneer. Priest the Nomad has been rocking microphones since the early 90s. He's part of the U Street alumni, and he's a founder of the Freestyle Fellowship. They used to teach freestyle courses up and down the East Coast. We're going to bring him in and talk to him about his long and storied career, his most recent work, his new album Receipts, and what he's got coming on now. Let's bring him in.
Yo.
Lil King.
What's up, brother?
What's going on, my brother?
How you doing, man?
I'm good, my bro. I'm good. Man, all right. I don't even know where to start because there's so much story, right? There's so much to cover.
First of all,
but let's go ahead.
Are you hearing me okay? Is everybody hearing me all right?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes the Bluetooth joints be acting up. I had to grab the, the wide joints.
Now, my brother, you sound great. You look great. You got a documentary coming out, right? Let's go ahead and talk about whatever you can share about the new Priest the Nomad documentary that you're currently working on.
Yo, man, first of all, I appreciate you having me, brother. You know what I'm saying? Respect. I remember you from way back around the way, you know what I'm saying? My man E Boogie and all that. Yeah, so much respect, Chris, for having me, brother.
I appreciate it.
So where we starting now? You said you were a little bit about the documentary.
Yeah, man. Let's jump into this documentary that you've been working on. I know you've been working on it really hard for a while. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible story that needs to be captured and needs to be told. Let's talk about it.
No doubt. So the documentary is called "I Was the Weirdo," and it's basically it's kind of a holler. My man Dr. William Smith, that's at Bowie State, was telling me what I was doing. It's kind of like the thing that he did on me, subject of a textbook there. And he said, basically it's a holographic model, so to speak, where I'm using my 30-year story of DC hip hop and the DMV. I'm part of the U Street, scene, that specific scene in DC. I'm using that story to basically shine a lens and a light on the underground hip hop scene that's been here. There are multifacets of the scene, but particularly the U Street scene. When people think about the little people know about DC hip hop is more on the street type of time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of dudes who's in the streets and cats connected to the hustlers and all that, but they don't know about the actual U Street type of scene, which is one of the most prominent scenes. So a lens to and light to that, but also a lot of connectivity. Well, I'll say before I even talk about that, but also about one of the things that I mentioned and haven't really been discussed, that I discussed in my documentary, and a number of people that we're interviewing. Shout out to my man AJ Throwback, who actually was the interviewer for this. And a lot of things that we talk about is the lens of how hip hop was viewed back in the late 80s, early 90s, especially the 90s.
Yeah.
According to what was going on the streets. So if people know about a lot of the history of the streets in this area, man, with respect Tony Lewis and them who just got out, Rayful Edmonds, a lot of the people's a lot of the hustlers, man, from way back. There were New York dudes coming down here and hustling and doing their thing. Of course, people know about Alpo, they know about a lot of stuff, but there was a lot of turmoil and beef between dudes coming down here. DC has kind of always been that thing. We're a real transient area.
Yeah.
Right? It was the nation's capital. A lot of folks come here. There's a lot of universities here. We have Howard, of course, Georgetown, American U, Catholic U. There's so many. Of course, neighboring Maryland, Virginia, all of that as well, the whole DMV. So we get a lot of people that come here from a lot of places. So that was one of the things on the streets. There was a lot of New York dudes coming down here, and there was a lot of street beef with that. And I
want to make sure that I know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying, and you know what you're talking about. But I want to make sure that an international crowd and a crowd that's like not only on the East Coast in the Mid-Atlantic knows what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Talking about selling drugs.
Yeah, we talk about
when
the
I say
crack
streets, we
epidemic.
talking about streets and drugs. When I say hustling, we talk about drugs and drugs and crack epidemic, particularly in the 80s and 90s were a big thing in all major cities: New York, DC, Chicago, Detroit. Everybody had them. Oakland. Everybody had their players. But DC was very particular. You know what I'm saying? And because we're the nation's capital, we're under the nation. People don't understand that we have city governance and then we have federal governance. We're not a part of a state.
That's right.
So DC, you know what I'm saying? And I went, half of my life back and forth between DC and Maryland. And I grew up in my high school years, middle school, high school years in Maryland, but I was born in Northeast in Brentwood. And then Riggs Park. So, but like a lot of that, and I still deal with my mother and is up in Fort Lincoln, so I still deal with being and doing stuff in the city, and of course all my art has been in the city. So one of the things that has always been particular about us is that we have outside people, Congress making decisions about our city, you know what I'm saying, that don't live here, right? That's like me selling you out in LA right now. That's like me saying, oh, you know what? I don't like what you're doing. I don't like what's going on in LA. We're going to make some laws against that. And I don't live in LA. I'm not from LA, right? That's crazy, right?
No taxation without representation.
Right.
If you're not in DC, people don't know that that's on every license plate.
Yes, definitely. And there's been a long-standing fight to make DC the 51st state, right? So that's always been the thing, DC statehood, whatever. So if you understand that whole dichotomy, right? So the drug thing was really particular here because a lot of laws got tried out here because we were under federal control and then got implemented in other cities, right? So there was a big beef on the street. I found out later. I didn't know a lot of this when I'm on a whole different scene, right? We're on the art scene. So, right, but I come to find out like later, I'm looking at the timelines of certain things that was happening, especially in the early 90s and the mid 90s. There was a lot of street stuff and it was affecting the lens of how hip hop was looked at because it was associated as New York. You know what I'm saying? Like if you was doing hip hop, it was New York. Oh, you doing that Bama, New York stuff. It was always that type of thing. Before
hip-hop was so big, right?
Hip-hop was big. Hip-hop was big, but it was still primarily New York. You know what I'm saying? Like LA, you talking about 92, 90, you know what I'm saying, 91, LA was just starting to pop with NWA and all that. Atlanta, Jermaine and them and Outkast, they were further down the road. Right. So, it wasn't really, everything was still, as far as industry, everything still went through New York. Right. So because, hip hop as a culture was associated with New York, of course, and it should have been. So I think we dealt with a lot of the attitudes because from DC dudes and dudes that was, even if they wasn't on the streets, if they wasn't hustlers or whatever, it was the neighborhoods, right? It was like whatever was going on in the neighborhoods, and because we have our own music of go-go, right? That is the primary music of the streets. Go-go is the primary music of the streets. So if y'all international and you don't really know what go-go is, right? That is we're a live music city, so that's just it derives from funk music. It is a live subgenre of live funk music that focuses on percussion, drums, congas, cowbells, timbales, all of that. And it's called go-go because there's no break in between songs. It keeps going and going and going. So, that has, because of go-go being the music of the streets, hip-hop has always been a stepchild. And because it was associated with New York, it was, during that time, it was really a lot of attitudes. It was like, oh, man, you doing that Bama stuff, man. You doing this or you doing that. And we didn't really realize where that was coming from. We just we was like, and, you felt ostracized, you felt alone. I know, I went to go-go's, I went to, we all grow up in the area, you do certain things and everything, but it's like we was, and it wasn't until later on when we made it to when I Freestyle Union, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And then U Street, where I found a lot of other people that thought like me, that was the weirdos, right? Right. So we talk about that. We're talking about that and how things were affected. And adversely, a lot of the street dudes was associated with independent labels and radio and DJs up in New York. Wow. So we caught a lot of the flack when we were trying to do things up in New York. We caught some of that. Oh, DC, you know what I'm saying? With the exception of certain things that kind of broke through, but for so many things you've seen that might have broke through, there was a whole lot of stuff that didn't break through.
Yeah.
Right. And it affected me, I think. But there's so much prominence. And one of the other things that Doc talks about is the prominence of everyone that flowed through DC, that whether they're from here or not, they made their bones in DC. I talk about, Chadwick Boseman, the late great Chadwick Boseman, hip hop theater in here, with my man Wes Felton and Camilla Forbes, who runs the Apollo Theater in New York, and a whole bunch of stuff. And, we talk about that. We talk about, Ta-Nehisi Coates, crazy writer, like author, and so many people, Citizen Cope, Soldier. There's, Deep Dish, who produced for Madonna. Like, there's so many, Sam the Man Burns, right? Like, there's so much
talent
in all different types of works and parts of the art that come from DC. You know what I'm saying? And even if they weren't from here, they came through, and because of the vibrance of the art here, they made their bones on us. So we're connecting a lot of those people. So I got people from the go-go realm. Of course, I got my big bro DJ Kool, who was from that scene of go-go and rap. Stinky Dink, the legends like that, and my man Killer Cow from Rare Essence. And then, we have the U Street folks, me, my man Kokai, Wes Felton, a lot of other people. And then, media people like my homegirl Delia Gonzalez from Channel 9 here. And, Gemini is on the radio. Radio and media is involved. And then, just other types of people from all across the spectrum that's talking about the particularities of being in the nation's capital.
Wow.
And it's my interview. I have a 3-part interview, so my interview kind of is like the narration, so to speak.
It's like the thread through the documentary,
right? It's the timeline of my story, but everything that was going on at certain points of the journey. You know what I'm saying? I had a situation with Quincy Jones that was on Washington Post back in 2000. That's on there. Like, we're talking about a whole bunch of things that, like, oh wow, that certain things that can only happen in the nation's capital. So it's dealing with a lot, man. So we're excited about it. I was the weird.
Does the documentary have like a release date?
No, not yet. We're still wrapping it up. It's about an hour now. It won't be a longer than an hour 20 format. But we're on a home stretch of it. We have a teaser and all the properties. You saw that. But we're just getting it together. We want to hit some film festivals early next year, and get some screenings going. Hopefully in the fall we can get a screening or something going.
That's dope, man. I commend you. That story needs to be told. Talking about, the documentary touches on it, but just talking about your own personal experience. Did you know back in, in this era, in the early 90s, mid 90s, how special what was happening on 14th and U, Black Broadway, what was happening there with hip hop in the nation's capital? Did you know what there were, or were you kind of going against the grain with it being a go-go town?
Well, we were what sparked the U Street whole, the resurgence, I should say, of U Street. If people look up U Street in Northwest Washington, D.C., there's a rich history, right, from post-Reconstruction after slavery of prominent blacks, free blacks coming into that corridor. And U Street there's numbers that intersected, and it goes from, currently from like 9th, 8th, 9th Street all the way down U Street up to like Adams Morgan, which is like 18th.
Yeah.
So it's like a good 10 block radius. But even before, the original U Street stretched even further on the southern side, where it was down Florida Avenue, but with the Howard Theater, Lincoln Theater, and Bohemian Caverns were like the main staples from the olden days. But after the riots, right? After Martin Luther King got killed in '68, there were riots all across major cities in the United States, and DC was one of the places, and a lot of things got burnt down, except for as you know, the story of Ben's Chili Bowl there. One of the survivors, because it was black owned. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that redevelopment, and so in the 80s and 80s after that, like it was hood.
Yeah.
It was still
boarded up.
It was still boarded up. It was still, you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't until a couple of business owners that took chances and had little cafes and spots and stuff like that, on U Street, places like the Coffee House on 12th and U, eventually, the State of the Union, which is now Alice. Now that's where Kool did the video for our joint. That was one of the main spots. Bar None, which is now Pure Lounge there. There was a number of historic spots. Of course, Republic Gardens, because Republic Gardens was in the old, and Mark Barnes recreated that. So there were so many spots, and it was literally just people trying to get, the owners trying to get people to come. And my man Kokai's on the dock, and he says this, shout out to Kokai, is that artists are always the first to gentrify. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? Artists are always the first to gentrify. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, we're the ones who we're from these areas, right? It's people when I came into the Freestyle Union's arts organization or whatever, and that started in Southeast. So and then eventually moved to U Street, right? So when we started, it was still nobody really coming down there, right? There was a couple spots. They had a spot where we later ran into some other crews, Head Rock and them, Infinite Loop, and all those cats. They were doing stuff. I forgot, there was an upstairs spot that they were doing stuff, but that and the Coffee House and then the State. So it was literally just places that little cafe owners and stuff opening up, and artists were the first company. They started having the open mics, poetry, hip hop, stuff like that, and then once they start seeing it, then other people start coming, and then they say, oh, well, this is cool. This is cool. It's safe now. Then you get the kids and some of the white kids that come from American and Georgetown and all those. Everybody starts coming, and then all of a sudden you have, boom, revitalization. Wow. So that's kind of what happened. But it was like, that kind of, and once I think the Freestyle Union, and according, with Infinite Loop and those guys was doing it, the spot, and then Freestyle Union, the Coffee House, those were the things that really, really brought a lot of the like minds, right? And the open mics, the poets, because poets would come to our ciphers and stuff, and then, so everything just artistically migrated there. And then it was, generations and stuff like that. So that, it was a resurgence of that whole corridor. And we were
on the cutting edge.
We were the main part of the that resurgence.
No, I remember like you couldn't just be walking up in the State of the Union back in the day. You needed to know where you were going. You know what I'm saying? DC was a lot tougher than it is now. Enrique E Boogie and I had a spot in front of Howard Theater.
Oh, okay.
Before when they were first, when they were trying to
so they try to redo it. Okay.
They're going to redo it. Oh my God, that corridor, we used to call it the Night of the Living Bassheads, Cause like you used to go
Nice.
there anytime past 9 p.m. And I used to walk to my girl's house that was who's now my wife, and she was in Adams Morgan. So I'd walk through, and I'm at my girl's house. You leave later than you thought. You're walking down U Street to get to that little area. I'd be there around 9 o'clock. It was Night of the Living Bassheads, and we were in this little rundown brownstone in front of what is now, the dope spot, which is Howard Theater. You know what I'm saying? Which is like, that's an incredible venue to perform at, but it was shut down because of the riots for decades.
Yeah.
And the place we were living in, we were for slumlord. You know what I'm saying? So that stuff was barely working, but we were just happy to be together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And have a spot downtown. But State of the Union and U Street and the Kaffa House and that whole area there, when you were doing that with cats like Stormed Unpredictable and Black Indian, and from that era, it was just starting, like the whole money coming into DC. You know what I'm saying? DC, that hadn't really happened yet. Like, it was a lot of U Street was still, people could buy property. You can't buy nothing in DC now. You know what I'm saying? You could buy brownstone. You could buy things back then. I remember the prices weren't like they are today. You got to add a couple zeros now. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, back in that era when you were first going and going to these open mics, having these shows, what was that like? Was it mostly freestyle? Was it mostly, groups? Was it a mix? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, well, the underground hip hop scene in DC was really it was really good. It was really dope, man. It was like I would see a couple. Well, I think my first, I was a dancer, right? So I got introduced into the scene. I was in the clubs dancing. I danced for hip hop artists. I danced for house artists. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Me and another cat at Howard, we both was dancing for some folks and stuff. And then but in the clubs you see everybody from the culture. That's where I met Tracey Lee and them and Young Guru and all of those cats. You know what I'm saying? And we were all around the same age or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Tracy's a little older than me, but and then there were parties. There were parties, the Howard parties, and so it was like that. So that's where you meet other people in the culture. So I got into the culture as a dancer. You know what I'm saying? Dancing. So and then and I was part of a dance crew called House Nation. You know what I'm saying? So we did the chapter 3. Later became the Mirage nightclub. Every Friday was our night. All of that. So I got introduced into different people, and then I started seeing they would have ciphers, and when it started like ciphers outside the club. So you have these people everybody's in the club that was in the hip hop. You go outside, and then people start spitting, people are rhyming. I started doing that, and they was like, "Oh, I thought you was just a dancer." I started rhyming, and because I was rhyming in high school, I went to High Point High School in Beltsville, Maryland. You know what I'm saying? So when I left the city, probably my elementary years, and it came into, you know what I'm saying, and Adelphi, and then Beltsville, and then Hyattsville after that. So moved around, you know what I'm saying, and then back to DC. But everything, and it's like, it's funny because everything that came up was always in the city. You know what I'm saying? I think that later became things in Maryland and later things in Virginia, but back then it was everything nothing. It was everything was in the city. You know what I'm saying? Everything. And so that's where, we would see that. And then it became, there was open mics here. It was the Ibex, right? Or it was the little spot. I forget that little spot, Nyala, or whatever spot on U Street. It was little joints around Georgia Avenue. There was joints around the city. You know what I'm saying? And so you would hit the spots or whatever. And but it wasn't until the Freestyle Union where I think things became movement. You know what I'm saying? I think the Freestyle Union. So for those who don't know, Freestyle Union was an arts organization founded by the sister that went to Howard University, Tony Blackman. And her and my man Sub Z, who was part of my crew at the time. And they founded the organization. And I had to correct you on that. I know I saw a post that said I was one of the founders. I was not. So let me set the record straight. I came early, but I wasn't one of the founders. Yeah, they started in this art space in Southeast called 8 Rock.
Yeah.
And so it started with a number of them. Black India was a part of that. A number of people early, and then they moved. And I met Sub Z at a freestyle competition at the State of the Union.
Wow.
And me and him tied. You know what I'm saying? And what happened was I heard about this man. I heard these cypher is all freestyle. And when we say freestyle, we mean improvisation. And I have to define that because there are different meanings and interpretations of what freestyle is. Freestyle before, in the old days, like you talk about the 80s, early 90s, it meant just rhymes that you just had, right? That weren't part of songs, right? They talk about that. So it was kicking a freestyle was a written rhyme, but it was like, something that you just had that wasn't on part of a song. Then it came to mean, in a segment of the 90s with us at Freestyle Fellowship out there in Cali, and it was straight improvisation. So that's when it became, because I think it was never really valued. Improvisation was never valued because it was always fun. It was like funny. Like it wasn't ever taken seriously. You just joked around. But we took freestyling to another level. We took it, we were, going real deep. Our reading, our exercises. So Freestyle Union was a workshop where MCs, and it was crews of MCs all over the city, and producers, because producers would bring beats and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so, I think that a lot of people would be interested in that. Can you share with us what a Freestyle Union workshop would be like?
Yeah. So shout out to Tony Blackman again. So Tony founded the Freestyle Union because there was no spaces, particularly for women.
Wow.
Right? So as a Black woman, and have a lot of women that were in the hip hop back then, it was such a male dominated, and you know how it was in the 90s was an aggressive era anyway.
Yeah.
So for those who are younger or whatever, the 90s, it was just aggressive. It was aggressive on the streets. It was aggressive in everything we did, right? It was Gen X's heyday, Generation X's heyday, right? So we grew up in the 80s of the crack era. So the 90s, we young adults, and we just live. You know what I'm saying? So
there was no talking trash online.
Nah, Slim. Nah, you got seen. Like people would come. I'm from the era where you got stole off the stage. You know what I'm saying? So it was like that. So I think she wanted to develop a safe space for artists to come rhyme and work on their skills, right? So she developed this thing and set ground rules. So there was no battling. You had to battle yourself. Mm-hmm. There was no battling other people. There was no bitch hole rhetoric. Yeah. Right. She didn't allow that. It was like, all that type of stuff. And then it was like we had exercises. So you couldn't bring written rhymes, right? Because it was exercises. She would make words up on index cards. It would be proverbs, like from books like Khalil Gibran or Bible or Quran. Yeah. We'd break down proverbs, freestyling, debates. She'll pick a topic. You're for it, you're against it. Wow. And we'd have to debate. That was the only type of battling that we did. It was everything. So you had to read. You had to be versed to what was going on. Like we were, and then we had reading lists. You know what I'm saying? So
and it was prior preparation.
It was
on the spot.
Well, the preparation is always feeding your mind. You know what I mean? That was the whole thing. It was like we're here to. It's basically like like playing ball. When you work on your ball handling, your 3 points, everything dunking. You work on that on your own, and then when you get to the game, you're displaying those skills, right? It's the same thing. We were the gym. We were the gym in which you worked out at, right? So you come to us to learn how to project. Was no mics, so you had to project your voice. You had to, you know what I'm saying? You couldn't hide behind the mic. It was like, it was so it was so many skill sets that you learned And then we did writing workshops and all that, but it was really about if you learn how to think on the level, because it was about filling your brain with information and then learning how to practice on drawing upon that information in a split second.
Wow.
Right. And so we would, and the thing is, one thing that is common a place about all things that involve improvisation. You think about jazz music, right?
Yeah.
That's why hip hop and jazz are so closely related. If you think about jazz and improvisation, there's something spiritual. There's a spiritual element on that. You know what I'm saying? So when you allow yourself, because the spiritual part is allowing yourself to be vulnerable, right? So when you allow, so it goes against hip hop. It goes against the tenets of what hip hop was. Hip hop is such a bravado, male, like ego, testosterone type of thing.
Yeah.
So for you to allow yourself to be vulnerable, to appear to be whack, because you have to break yourself down to start working and developing yourself to get to another level. And for those people who were willing to do that, and then they came to the Freestyle Union workshops were open to the public. So anyone, if you, as long as you abided by the rules, you could come sit and rhyme. But because we gave you the stuff to rhyme about and the things like that, it's like you had to develop and you had to learn how to be comfortable in making mistakes.
Yeah.
We would turn mistakes into a style, things like that. You know what I'm saying? So that was the thing, that was the beauty, and you're connecting with other individuals by letting yourself be free, right? Wow. That was the whole tenet. And because you're letting yourself be, there's a spiritual element involved in that. And it's just about the purity of the craft of rhyming. So that's what the union was about. And it attracted a lot of folks, of course, from scholars, people from the poetry scene, like so many people that would come through and just watch these workshops and stuff. And we had some incredible MCs. That's one of the reasons why DC, and then people that didn't get to witness the union, they were descendants of that, right? We had generations of people that were kids, because we were the elders, like we were the older members, right? But then you had the younger people, you know what I'm saying, that came up under us, the amphibians, and you know, a lot of crews that came up under that were kids. I mean, Duke Ellington and other, you know, spaces, whatever, you know, that, and then because, you know, everybody was coming to U Street for these things, and then they'd be like, oh, we're here. What else is going on? What else is going on? And then all of these spaces start, oh, things are popping on U Street. Things are popping on, and then, you know, we would have our ciphers. It was bi-weekly and then monthly.
Wow.
Right. And then we had a performance core. A number of us who were the elders, we started performing as a unit as well. You know what I mean? So
as the Freestyle Union.
Yeah. But we were all separate artists. Like I was solo, Storm was solo, Kokai, Sub-Z, and Black Indian had their group Open Soccer Ben. You know, Unspoken Herd came through there a couple of times. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, shout out to my man Asheru, you know, Infinite Loop, Head Rock, and all them. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of people that all over the scene. If they weren't part of it, they would come through and vibe, and then we would do stuff afterwards. And then, of course, producers would come. Well, I want to see how they vibe off my beats. We would rock local producers' beats because we would just, you know, and so it was a community, so to speak. You know, and then, you know, the hip hop theater stuff evolved out of that, you know, with my homegirl Camilla and Chad and all them out of that. You know what I'm saying? It's in the house, so.
Yeah, that's a great segue. So we're talking about the Freestyle Union, the beauty and the uniqueness of that organization, your participation in it, all of the talent that came out of there. You mentioned a few, right? Infinite Loop, Storm, Kokai, so much talent that came through there. Priest the Nomad, obviously, right? Coming through there. And then segue that into hip hop theater. How does hip hop theater connect with that? Howard University, Howard alumni, and how you connected with them?
So Camilla Forbes, who's now the executive producer at the Apollo Theater in New York. So all of y'all people, what's been going on at the Apollo Theater last probably 5-6 years or so, it's been all her. Like, she's been doing incredible stuff there. Shout out to Camilla. Camilla was in a Freestyle Union. They had a all-female you know, group called Daughters of the Cypher, and she was a part of that along with Tony and all that. And then her and another sister that came through, they had a they had a group called Shy Garden. It was her and this other sister Meredith from New Jersey. And Camilla's from Chicago, but she went to Howard. They went to Howard. So because they would come through the union and then the stuff. And so I think a lot of the people that, again, Howard was right up the street. So we had a lot of people coming from, universities coming down. And then we did ciphers at Howard. Like we would do ciphers, and Howard had HU, they had their whole hip hop conference with, Guru and Tim Jones and them and Trey and them and all that, like the cultural initiative.
Yeah.
Hip hop conference. So that was an industry conference, man. So we would go there. They had the battles there. They had the war games. I won that in '95. So it was just so it was the communities were all, they were tentacles, right? So Camilla, because she was with us and then she was at Howard and she was part of the whole hip hop community here, she basically for her thesis, basically senior thesis type of thing that she created, they explored this hip hop theater thing. I think there was one little element of that in England. This cat, Jonesy D, I can't remember in England, but there was nothing here like that. You know what I'm saying? So they created this piece, and actually the play is called Rhyme Deferred. And it was based off a joint that my man Sub Z did, actually, which was based off Langston Hughes' poem A Dream Deferred.
Wow.
So that was the hip hop theater, and it evolved B-boys. Shout out to my People's Lines of Zion, my man Ghost, Sonny and them.
Yeah.
They was in it, my man RBI, Tech One. Like there was a lot of DJs, Eskimo and all them. They were all DJs.
Legends. You just mentioned nothing but legendary
Tech One, right there.
RBI.
Yeah, they were the
Ghost.
DJs. They were the DJs, and then MCs. So my man Jabari, who was Human Prophets, and he was real tight with Chad Bozeman, and Chad was a student there at the time. I think he was maybe a junior or senior.
Yeah.
And
so before the Chad Bozeman that everybody knows around the world.
Well, it was still the same Chad. The Chad that y'all saw. That's one thing I really am proud about that brother. He kept it all the way 1,000, with just being never changing. He was still Chad. After Black Panther, after all of this stuff, I mean, he would come and Chad was Chad. You know what I'm saying? He always been on that. He always been real humble dude. Loved the culture, loved the spiritual element of the culture. He always stayed true to that. And him and my man Jabari was, real tight. So they created this theater piece with all the elements, and it was a story just about the industry versus the culture, type of thing. That was the story of it. And I played the head MC in it. And the dope thing about it was, we freestyle every, like the part of my role in it was, rhyming and freestyling the ballad. And that's what was the beauty of it. Every time we did it, there was freestyle in it. I would literally.
It was new.
No, yeah. I mean, the play was written, of course, but my elements, my part in there, I got to freestyle and improvise all the time. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's one of the things that made it special.
Wow.
In it. And so we did National Black Theater Festival. We did a whole bunch of things with it. New Eureka Poets Cafe of New York, and a whole bunch of stuff with it, and a lot of people are that were in that play was really doing their thing, man. So my homegirl LaQuise out in Chicago doing her thing, like this, of course Wes Felton, a whole bunch of folks, man, that came through. There were iterations of that because Kokai took my place when I couldn't do it anymore. You know what I'm saying? So so that sparks it. Then I think Camilla, once that played that, and my man Samayeni 24, who actually had this other play, I think Nightmares of Juju B. Brown, something like that. He had a play that ran concurrent parallel along with that, our play. So him and Camilla worked a lot together, and they wound up starting, kind of kicking off Hip Hop Theater Festival. And they would have other plays and things involved. They had this whole festival that would go to different cities and stuff. So there was this whole, like genre,
But it
so to speak,
started
of
with this
theater. And
first one that you
yeah,
were in.
yeah, started with Rhyme the First.
So, and
You
do you know, as far as your knowledge, was Rhyme Deferred the first hip hop play in the United States?
No, I can't say. I don't know. We didn't know of anything else, and there were a lot of theater people, right?
Yeah.
That were because they, a number of theater people that were doing this hour. So they, from what I understand, no, I think the thing that was going on in England and London, that first iteration with Jonesy and them out there was the first that was really known. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can't say what was happening in on campuses, universities and stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as coming out and doing stuff, what we were doing, us and Samayani's stuff, were like the first iterations of that. And I know the festival started with that. And so Lin Mel,
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna say. This is
yeah,
years before
right.
Hamilton.
But he was a direct descendant of that because he actually stepped to Camilla years back when he had another play, and Camilla helped him with it.
Wow.
And then
The
Hamilton came. Yeah, I think it was that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Hamilton came out of that. So, yeah, that's the direct. It's a direct descendancy from the play Hamilton from what was going on with hip hop theater around the firm. Definitely.
Wow.
So I mean, and all of this stuff came through the city, man. All this stuff came through DC. You know what I'm saying? And it was just, yeah, it was just an incredible time. And we just doing what we do.
Yeah.
We didn't know. You didn't know what you were doing. You don't know history is being made when you do it. You're just doing it. And we were just so happy to find tribes of people that was into what we were into.
Yeah.
Right? Because we were the weirdos. Right? We was like, oh, y'all do. So, when you bring this to, and I was on different scenes, right? So I was in the clubs. I would go down to the chapter in the Mirage, and I would try to get, like when I was doing shows at the state or Houston, I would take flyers down there, and I would shout out to my man DJ Eminem, who was on PGC. He was the resident DJ. Eminem would look out and always play my vinyl down there. You know what I'm saying? And but I would, every time we had shows on U Street or whatever, I'd say, oh, I had a lot of ladies at my shows and stuff. So I would always, we always promote to the ladies. So I would definitely be hitting people up on that, on the other scenes, to try them to get to discover what we were doing on U Street. You know what I'm saying? So you win all of these other arenas and say, hey, look, there's this whole thing going on. Y'all need to come check it. And some people did, you know what I'm saying? So, so yeah, it was a crazy time.
You mentioned you had your vinyl. They'd be spinning your vinyl on the radio station. Probably one of the first independent hip hop artists in the DC area to have their local, vinyl that they pressed up being spinned on a major city like DC is. There's a debate I have. I'm trying to figure it out. I want to know how well you know. Did you have the first vinyl in the DMV?
I have no idea. Probably not. No, absolutely. No, because you had Castle independent labels, right? So you had Sticky Dink, who was on Luke's label. Actually, shout out to my man, my big bro Stinky Dink, man. He's on the dock. So you had, of course, Kool. Kool, I do know DJ Kool was the first rapper from here to rap over Go-Go Break, because he had the break beat, he had the Go-Go Break beat that he did for Music Ain't Loud Enough. And that was 1986. So that single came out. The album came out in like years later, I think in 80, 90. Because he had a number of different records on there, the Reggae Dance, a couple other 20-minute workout. I think that might have been a little later. But yeah, so there was the go-go rappers, you know what I'm saying? I think, of course, and led by the legendary Fat Roddy and all of that. But, as far as I pressed up the vinyl out my pocket. I wasn't on a label. So I know this was 94, me and my friend of mine, my man Jay Will, who did the beat, for our first single, Janine. And we actually did a re-release on an indie label in 97. So, so it was literally us doing some test presses and giving them to certain club DJs that, like, Eminem was one. I think my man trading maybe at the Ritz or something. You know, a couple people that spun it that I knew was on radio. I think CeeLo rocked it. Funk Regulator CeeLo. Shout out to my man. He's on the dock too. So those cats were definitely, you know, and I think it was like the refreshing thing because everything was so, when it came to hip hop, was so New York, and we wanted to show. I think DJs here wanted to show. No, it's some dudes doing some dope stuff down here, you know, as well. So they would look out against the wishes of program directors and stuff like that. They would sneak those records on to the mix shows and things like that. So man, you know, I got my reverence and admiration and reverence for DJs is just beyond reproach, man. DJs are the foundation. So anything that has always benefited for me has come from a DJ.
It started with a DJ.
So, yeah, man. So shout out to all the DJs that are still in that rock, you know, and the beautiful thing about now is that we don't have that industry, those industry gatekeepers, so to speak, that used to prevent our records from getting to certain spaces. So now we hear our stuff on the Shade 4-5s, the premieres, and you know, clips in them, and you know, whole, you know, Rhapmatic in them out there. Shout out to Rhapmatic, you know what I'm saying? You know, that are playing all that stuff because you know, there's no rules. No, it's like, yo, if it's dope, it's getting in the mix. You know what I'm saying? So that's dope. Yeah.
Salute to DJ E Boogie. Tuned
my
in.
Dude, E. Yes, sir.
That's the man right there.
Yes, sir. He is.
You mentioned earlier, and I wanted to see if you could expand on it a little bit. You talked about the war games and winning the war games in '95. Can you share with us what the war games were? And
I don't even remember. I remember it was a part of the it was a battle, round by round battle that they had in the hip hop conferences at Howard University, and I remember them, and because that was the only time I really got to see a lot of the other dudes that was doing stuff around the city, or at least you know, that were connected, you know, to and it wasn't just DC dudes. It was like, you know, dudes that were people from here, from New York or whatever. And you have round by round battles and stuff like that. And I won in '95, and I literally didn't even remember I won. So somebody brought it up to me. It's like, yo, you won. I literally have a clip of that in the doc after I won. And I went out, my man Troy was filming, and I'm out there freestyling on it. He's like, yo, you know, the war games. And I said, I'm at the war games. Said, you know, did you win? I'm like, oh yeah, because he's throwing questions at me while I'm rhyming.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, I did win that. I didn't even remember. But, you know, it was just, like I said, that time, there was a lot of, you know, there were a lot of like little showcases and like battling for, you know, little label deals, single deals, all that type of stuff that would happen. I know Chris Lighty had a joint, rest in peace, had a thing down here that like me and Tracey Lee and all them were in. We was all going against each other, and Lee Shaheed had some, you know, like stuff down. So there was always stuff going on like that, you know. But yeah, those hip hop conferences at Howard were legendary, man, because everybody would be there. You know what I'm saying? In fact, me and Common, when I did Howard's Homecoming in like '93, and me, Biz, and Common tore down the Ritz nightclub in '93 because I'd opened for Tribe and De La Soul at the DC Armory the night before. And then that Saturday night at the Ritz, there were a bunch of people, and Biz was spinning, and I was with Biz at the time. And Rashid Common stepped to me and was like, yo, man, I just saw you last night. I was like, yo, you know, trying to get on. I was like, bro, you know, you can rhyme with me. Yeah, he was like, oh, so, you know, me, him, and Biz, we wound up, you know, Biz saw both of us about to rock, and he was like, oh, I want to rock too. Like, you know, he puts, I think he put Trini on the turntables, and then we all, me, him, and Common. Then I stayed in touch with Common. Then, you know, he came to a couple of those conferences. You know, I met him on the yard. Right there, one of the years. I think in '95. I think it might have been '95 or '94.
A good year.
95 or '94. Something might have been '94. Because I don't know if I had met the union yet. So it might have been like '94. And I remember because he had a black eye. He just got jumped or something up Chicago, and he came to the conference. I said,
You know
what the hell happened to
Chicago's
you?
tough when you get
I
away to
was like,
DC.
Slim, what happened to you? He's like, oh man, these dudes jumped me. I was like, here? He's like, nah, back home. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
And we chilled for the rest of the day. It was funny, man. It was like, yeah, but it was a crazy time, man.
That's dope. You mentioned so many icons, right? Chris Lighty, Common, but you had a really strong relationship with Biz Markie. Can you talk to us about your relationship with Biz Markie and how you met him?
Yeah, man. RIP, big bro. Met him in 92 really briefly, but really got to know him in 93.
Yeah.
And I met him because, Biz had started DJing around that time. He had stopped performing as an artist, and he started DJing around like 92. So I knew all the promoters down here, you know what I mean? Like my man Rhonda Berry, Dominique and them, and all the cast that was doing parties. Steve Solomon, who wound up being in the industry, rest in peace. But a cat from my crew, dance crew, House Nation, my man Monty, Lamont Wanzer. Monty was him and my man Big Tone. They were actually doing parties too. They were a little promotional duo, and so they were doing parties, and so all the promoters were with each other. So Biz got booked down here first in DC. I think he did the Ritz and a number of spots, and then they started doing parties with him. Wow. So they started, basically getting them booked to parties, and then they had peoples all over, and they all promoters got together. So we did University of Virginia homecoming, and like '93. So. And that's when I really got to know him. Like, so Monty was doing sound. So we brought stuff and I helped him set up, and I was sound checking. And it was a ballroom. And Biz came in and was like, yo, he was like, Priest, check the mic. So people knew I could rhyme.
Yeah.
So, I hadn't really said I was going back rhyming because I was still dancing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And but I was rhyming, I was freestyling, so dudes knew. So he's like, yo, Priest, check the mic. So I'll be checking the mics, and I started beatboxing. And Biz walks in, he's like, yo, who's that beatbox?
Yeah,
like,
it's Biz. It's Biz Markie.
So they was like, yo, that's Priest. And they was like, yo, he can rhyme too, blah, blah, blah. So those Biz thoughts, he's, you can't rhyme, blah, blah, blah. So, me being from DC, being from the area, I was just like, man, look, Slim, I said, I can rhyme. So what's up?
Yeah.
And so he was like, so,
right, Biz Markie's personality.
We went at it like at sound check.
Wow.
And I start,
so Biz Markie dropped some rhymes and you dropped some rhymes.
Yeah. So Trini, DJ Trini was with us. Shout out to Trini. Trini started spinning because Monty wound up managing him too.
Wow.
So so he, and the SNS and a number of people that Monty managed. So he basically started spinning. It was like, and I said, all right, well, let's rhyme. Then I started rhyming. He went, we go back and forth. It wasn't no battle. It was we just rhyming. And so he was like, all right, you got skills and everybody. So I thought, like I said, that was it. I was like, cool. Yeah. So at the party and at the homecoming, it was like the height of the homecoming. It was like 1:00 in the morning. It was like, it was all fire. Popping. He killing it. It's like 3,000 people in the ballroom. You know what I'm saying? And he just stops the music. Was like, yo, Priest to the stage.
Biz Markie.
Yeah. He's like, Priest to the stage, and I'm dancing with a female and everything. I'm like, I hear that right. And he's like, yeah, dude, Priest, Biz called you to the stage.
Get on stage.
Right. So he was like, yeah, what's up now? And so I think, but I didn't realize that he was interested in me. You know what I'm saying? But he wanted to see, okay, we had a part, let me put dude in front of this and see what he got for real. And I was like, all right, well, whatever, we here. And so boom, we did the same thing. I start freestyling the crowd. I probably grabbed some people in the front row and we started rocking, and we went back and forth. But then it was another level because Biz, as you know, he's an entertainer. So
Absolutely.
Biz had stuff on deck. He had stuff, he bringing out, he like, these one-liners. I'm all shook up and he's doing all these one-liners and, and because that's what he do, you know what I'm saying? So he just showed me like, yo, there's levels to this, right?
Yeah.
And he showed you like what entertaining was, right? But like I got love, I got
Yeah.
love from that. And then afterwards he was like, yo, you dope. But I show you some things. And then Monty wound up managing him. And he was managing me at the time.
So y'all got to be
So
together.
I was doing stuff, and I would go with his crib in Jersey, and we'd be on the road a couple times and blah blah blah, and rhyming, and then so it didn't last too long, probably about a good maybe close to a year of doing this and that, and then their thing went crazy, and then I was still trying to find myself and my my voice or whatever, but then when I became an engineer, we kept in touch, and when I became an engineer, I started working with him again as an engineer. Wow. So that's when we got closer because I grown up, like and everything. So so we kept in touch in the later years, probably about good 10 years or so before, he passed away. That periodically I would work with him. I did his verse on Bumpy Knuckles album, the Pop Duke album. So I recorded, I did that session, and a couple other things. I did stuff for him on Yo Gabba Gabba, so he did a little puppet show.
I remember Yo Gabba Gabba. That's it was so.
I recorded him.
Cool
I recorded him there when I was at Omega because they had producers. We would do ISDN sessions when I was at Omega Studios.
Yeah.
And then
take us through that because we're jumping into the engineering, and I think that's like so dope that you have your era as a dancer, you've got your era as a freestyle rapper, Freestyle Union. Then we talked about hip hop theater. You have a whole era as an engineer. Can you share with us how you got into that and where you worked as an engineer at?
I became an engineer about 2001, 2. I went to school for it at a well-known spot here in Rockville, Maryland called Omega Studios, Omega Recording Studios. It's a major label studio and a school. So what was dope about Omega is that they had major label sessions there, but they would have to split the time between doing sessions and actually classes, right? So you would have, a lot of stuff overlapped. And so you'd see major people coming through to record and you're in class, right? It was quite a
real. Like it's real.
Yeah.
Like the industry's there.
Right. And Young Guru went there. So like I knew Rue went there, and I knew some other folks who went there as, he went there like in the 90s. So I went there 01, 02, and then I interned there, and then I wound up because I basically was, when I was rhyming, I was working in the restaurant industry. I was at B. Smith's, and I was there in Union Station. I was working I wanted to be totally engulfed in the industry portion. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I want to be able to make money off this totally in music. So one of the reasons why I became an engineer. Now people always kept telling me like, yo, you got real good ears. Yeah. Like when I be in mixing sessions, I'd be like, well, what is that? I wouldn't know how to explain it, but they always, Cass would always tell me, yo, you got real good ears. You should become an engineer. So that's what happened. And I'm living proof, man. I wasn't a real technical person. You can learn that. I learned it, you know what I'm saying? But I engineer as an artist, so to speak, because I don't overthink stuff, if it's mistakes or whatever, as long as I'm, I know the rules and certain things are where they need to be, as long, I don't overthink. I use things artistically, you know what I'm saying? So, I went to, then they wound up hiring me back there in like 04, 05.
So you went to school there, you were a student.
Yeah. And I was freelancing out in the field. I worked at Lincoln Theater, a number of places around the city. I was a stagehand at the 930 Club. You know what I'm saying?
In the industry.
Yeah.
Different parts of the industry.
And I think because of my reputation as an artist, and they needed someone to take over, hip hop and our music and R&B. They had no real hip hop and R&B person at the time.
Wow.
So the GM, the general manager there, my man Shannon, he called me and was like, "Yo, we want you to come back to Omega, come to Omega and work. You got to teach." It's like, you got to teach. So if you work there as an engineer, you have to teach. So I taught 4 programs: Pro Tools, MIDI, the main recording engineering program, plus me, and shout out to my man Unknown, Odyssey's DJ and Good Company and the Odyssey joint. We did a
producer.
Yeah, we did a music business class together there, because he went there too.
Wow.
And I remember when I was working, I think he was after me, but so yeah, then I took over hip hop, the all hip hop, R&B, gospel. So I worked with, of course, Raheem Devon, Ludacris, Drew Hill, number of joints with Drew Hill. Shout out to Nokio, and my man Brian Transo, BT, he's a pop music producer, a lot of stuff for Britney Spears and stuff, and Biz, of course. Kool came there, just a lot of people on the scene, because Omega was known.
Oh yeah.
So there's always people coming through there, and so you always wind up, and anything that was hip hop was coming through there, or R&B, they'd be like, Priest, got to see Priest, go see Priest, and then people started hearing that I was there, and they were like, oh no, we, because they kind of had a crap reputation for a minute before I came there for hip hop and stuff and R&B. So Lil Mo, work with her, what I'm saying? Like Maya used to come there.
Wow.
So just doing all this stuff. So yeah, I wound up taking over a lot of that music, and then and I would do my thing there after hours. Like I would have cats come through.
Yeah, you had a
vibe out. Yeah. I made my Mr. Move Something album there in 05. That was the first album that I actually, for me, I worked on there.
Wow.
And did a lot of stuff there. And then, but I would have, my man Kev Brown, Odyssey, Roddy Rob. I have low budget cats. Like everybody would come up through there, live dudes, my man Biscuit and them. And, we would come through, vibe out. A lot of people's come through, and some producers would come. Just run we had an SSL console, analog console, 4000 back in Studio B was my room. And we had multiple recording rooms with all analog consoles, Neve, VR, SSL, API. So for all my nerds, my tech nerds, engineer nerds out there, I know those flagship analog consoles. And we had analog tape machines, and we had Pro Tools HD systems there.
Wow.
So yeah, just, come and do stuff after hours there, and, things like that. And then, I'd have to go do events. I was in the recording academy at the time and stuff, so yeah, a lot of work there. Then I freelanced at other spots, after Omega as well. So
that's dope, man.
Yeah. So yeah, man. And even now, there's a number of people on the scene that I do mixing. I mix for, when they have projects out, sometimes I can pick and choose my projects, because and
people really know you got the skills.
I'm really locked down on my stuff and the doc and all that, but I'm having to do, a couple cast things here and there, as well. So, dope, yeah, man. So, yeah.
From 2019 to now, you've released 3 dope projects, the most recent of which is Receipts. Receipts is an incredible project, but it has an anthem on there. An anthem on there that's the remake of the DJ Kool, The Music Ain't Loud Enough.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to us about how that song came together? Who approached who and the production of it and all of that?
Yeah, man. Shout out to Big Bro. Kool and Biz were like my guiding lights, man. And Kool, it's funny because I used to see Kool when he DJ'd down the east side. I would sneak in as under the fake ID going out to the east side, when I was still like a senior in high school and everything, and then never think I would, meet him. But then he would come down U Street. And I remember he saw me get busy at State of the Union one time, and that's how we really, really met. And then, so he was Kool, kept a good pulse on the underground of DC hip hop. You know what I'm saying? So So that was real dope. And so we just kept in touch. And then we did this little other little joint. I had like a mixtape that I was supposed to do back in when I was working on the Manhood project. I had a little mixtape series but I didn't get to release it. But we did a joint called Crash and Burn that's on my Bandcamp.
Yeah, I saw it on your Bandcamp.
And then so that's the first time that we really got up. But he always had love for me and a number of other cats on the scene or whatever. So shout out to my people's team demo, Daltone and Jade. They gave me the beat for they did the beat for the remake for the Music Ain't Loud Enough. And they brought the joint to me, and as soon as I got it, as soon as they gave me the beat, they said nothing about it. As soon as they gave me the beat, and I just started saying it. The music ain't loud enough. Pump up the volume. I just started saying the hook. I mean, literally instantly. That's kind of how I create. Like if it hits me, if it's something, it's going to catch me in the first time I hear the beat. I'm going to get something, like a hook or something. So I just kept saying the music ain't loud enough. Pump up the volume. The music ain't. And I was like, damn. I was like, this would be dope to like remake Kool's
track
joint on, right? I was like, yo. And I saw some. Once I get an idea, I gotta run with it. So I hit Big Bro up, and I was like, look, man, I got an idea for a remake of your joint. This is your first single. This is dear to him. This is, it's 86. I was like, dude, and people don't really talk about that record. They talk about First Let Me Clear My Throat, other things, 20-minute workout, but not that one as much. And I'm just like, yo, this is kind of bring more attention back to that joint or whatever. So,
absolutely. And
I was like, and it's a go-go break. So I was like, for me to take it and turn it into a boom bap hip hop joint, and connect those two words. Like I think deeper, right? So I see
absolutely
making that
this
connection.
Is your background, right? This is the environment that you came up in.
Right. And it's perfect because we're all connected. And that's one of the things I want to show in the doc, like how much of us from the go-go scene and all these street guys, we're all connected, even though we have our own lanes, right? So I was like, this would be real dope to remake. And so I was like, and Kool's super busy, like, so I hit him up and I was like, big bro, I got this idea. I told him about it. And he was like, I give him a lot of props, man. He just trusted me enough to come over. Look, he took an Uber to my crib and was like, all right, let's do it. And I told him exactly what I wanted him to do. Instead of taking a Rakim sample, I did it myself.
Yeah.
The pump up the voice. I just engineered a little robotic effect on the voice.
Yeah, you know how to do
and everything. Right. So, I recorded him in the hook, and then every time I kept hearing at the end, I kept hearing the system, the joint, and the feel is so real. Don't disturb this groove. I kept hearing that, and the feel is so real. Don't disturb this. Don't it? So, because that's what it gave me. Like the feeling is so real, right? So I hit my man Jay Hill up. I was like, yo, I want you to redo this little joint from the system, the Don't Disturb the Groove joint. So I had him lay his part, came and then I wrote it. And then mixed it and all that and everything and engineered it and everything. And then got, Daltone to do cuts on it and and then I think my man Wise D from Team Demo Grammy laced bass on it. And we just got this record together, and it was
grimy Team Demo bass on it.
Yeah, it was it's funny because we have visions. And one thing being an engineer afforded me to do, because I went from being an artist to being an engineer, right? And I learned how to be a producer because I engineered for major label producers, right? So not just from hip hop, gospel. So I would watch producers that would bring programmers. They would bring 2-3 dudes on MPCs. So program and then have a live band on top of it. And then have overdubs and choirs and all this. So I watched production and I would engineer and mix or whatever. So I learned how to produce, right? Not just make beats, right? So I'll have cats make beats stuff because I've done beats, but I just don't have time, right? So I have them do that elements and I'll grab live musicians or whatever and to do stuff. And so I saw the vision of it, and so when Daltone was doing the cuts, he was killing it, right? He was, and this is a thing when it comes to producing, because producing is making the decisions of what is the main elements of a song, right? What are the things that are supportive, and what are the things that are the main elements? You know what I mean? So I knew that Kool had to be the main element, and I knew that Jay, with at the end, that R&Bing it out a little bit had to be a major element, and everything else had to support that. But my man Tone was killing the cuts. Like, he was like, killing. I said, Tone, I was like, yo, I gotta back up off these cuts, bro. And this is the process, right? So it was a tug back and forth. He's like, man, I came back on him, man. I did this and that. I said, yo, trust me, bro. I was like, just trust me. So I was like, I'm not gonna introduce none here. I'll put a little bit here, a little bit, but at the end, you're doing your thing, right? Like blah blah blah. And he was like, oh man, Prince. I was like, bro, trust me. And it's so funny because I say this to let people know, like, this is part of the process.
Yeah.
You work through it, and you have to establish a track record, because I had a track record, right, of knowing how to make records. Like, they're major, gold to platinum.
We can't even keep track of everything.
Production, and they trusted me enough to take the lead and to say, as long as I cleared it with them, to take the lead on the production end of it, to say, like, look, I need to make these decisions. Trust me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it was dope. So we were able to, have it mixed it, and and just at the end, it was just like, yo, when we got it done, it was like, and Kool, I sent it to Kool, and he was like, wow. And he was like, yo, so took a minute to get the video done. That was a whole nother
that's a whole other art.
So it took us a minute to get the video done by us, but us doing that video on U Street in the old State of the Union, which is now called Alice.
Like full circle.
It was like literally bringing it back home. And if you and one of the things I always do with my music, I'm about soul. I'm unapologetically Black and unapologetically soulful, right? And things have to connect. They have to connect to something deeper. So if you watch that video, I have African dancers, and we're like in a club looking spot. We're in the club, actually.
Yeah, in the club.
And I've got 3 African dancers dancing in their traditional West African garb, in that video. You know what I'm saying? Like, who does that? And it was so spiritual there. Kool, when Kool watched it, I watched it. When we let them go, and they were on the floor, and we made space for them, through sisters, and one was a mother and daughter combination. It was just like, it was so much stuff happening. But to have those elements, to me, like, it made me cry. I teared up, because to make that connection back to the ancestors, to, you know what I'm saying? And the feeling so real, like, how deep is that when you got an ancestral connection, right? So, like, to me, it goes deeper.
Yeah.
It goes deeper. So if you get it, then you get it. But if you don't get it, it's just a hot record, right? And the good thing, we put the record out, the DJs, and we had my man, was it Kareem? I forget his name. The promoter helped us work it to all college radio and mainstream radio DJs, and we did. And it was the #1 record and on the Rap Attack list with Nasty Ness and them. So it was the #1 record. And the funny thing is that they always have a feature of an artist. They did a feature, so I was on a Zoom with all the DJs from that collective. A number of them, like, probably good about 10, 15. They're probably like 60 or something. But and one of the things, they were like, man, this is like the perfect record. It was like, the elements of boom bap, but soul, and just and it's just it was. I'm proud of that record, man. And it's like and it really did bring some attention back to the original. Me and Kool did a couple of different things at universities and stuff, and at GW, and a couple little programs, things like that. And because of that record, people go look up the original. And that's what I wanted to happen, because we got to document the history. You know what I mean? So Shout out to DJ Kool, my dog.
Shout out to DJ Kool, man. Thank you so much for all that background.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you got a dope name, and you know it's uncommon too, right? So Priest the Nomad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us what the origin of your name is?
So I was rhyming in high school. I told you I went to high school in Maryland, High Point High School in Beltsville, Maryland. I lived in Beltsville my junior, middle school to high school years, and then I moved to Hyattsville for my father. My mother's from D.C. and my father's from actually Montgomery County, Maryland. So how they hooked up, I never know. But it's like two different worlds, right? But my father's from the Cabot John area, and then from Montgomery County. Mother's from D.C., from Northeast, where that's where I was born. And but anyway, so my mother, when we moved and they split, we moved to Beltsville. And then I was rhyming in high school. I was people know me in high school. Raheem went to my high school. He was much younger than me. A number of people went to High Point High School, and I used to walk around with a microphone around my neck. I was on my own. And there was some dudes who cast their rhyme there. There was this brother who I used to rhyme with that lived in Adelphi, Maryland, my man, or Robert Beverly. He passed away years ago, but he gave me the name Priest. And he so because there was a incident, so I didn't have the Nomad, I had Priest first. So it was a incident that I talked to dude. Long story short, I talked to a dude. Some dudes was beefing after school, and I talked this dude from really taking it too far. Right. Yeah. This is the conscious hip hop era. This is like 88, 89. It's like 89, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, I got the Malcolm X medallion. I'm Public
Enemy.
Yeah.
Like, Public Enemy. Public Enemy.
We native tongues. Right. We all of this stuff. Right. So I wound up talking to this dude, man, and I can't remember who exactly it was, but it was like it's a conversation I overheard, and we were all there, and I was like, bro, you can't do that. No. So I'm dropping knowledge on him, like, Slim, you can't do that. You going this and this and that, and he was like, man, Larry, you always, da 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 da. You go, and I talked him out of it basically.
Yeah.
And and then the story got back to my people, you know what I'm saying, and then I was over my man's house, and he was like, man, you were always preaching. He was like, yo, you preach. He's like, yo, you like to preach to hip hop. He's like, you like to preach to hip hop, the way your spirit is or whatever. He said, I'm gonna start calling you Priest. And that was it. So I didn't have a rhyme name, and I was rhyming because I was battling dudes at lunch and taking lunch money. Like I would, I say that on receipts on the Where's My Change. I was like, used to take dudes' lunch money outside their class. That's the real free lunch program. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then, I would just start referring to myself as Priest. And then as a dancer, when I got on the club scene, everybody called me Priest. They was like, yo, what's your name? I'm Priest. So it was Priest. And then even when I started, even when I released that vinyl, that vinyl says Priest. It doesn't say Priest the Nomad. The first iteration of Janine, the label version is 97, but the version that they have that at this record store down here in DC in Union Market called Songbird Records. They got it unopened, the test pressing from the one I pressed up, 94. They didn't know it was me because the owner didn't know it was me because it didn't say Priest the Nomad, it just said Priest. And so he was like, yo, that's you. And I was like, yeah, that's me, blah, blah, blah. So we took a picture, and it's like the rare vinyl, like the $100 and something rare vinyl, right? And it says test pressing on it, right? You know what I'm saying? So the Nomad came later because there were a number of different entities cast named Priest. There was a group called Boom Poetic out of New York with Shaki and this other cat named High Priest. And then there was, I think, a producer named Priest. The thing might have been down with Dre and them out on the West Coast or whatever. But so I added the Nomad because I was the way that I always felt as the outsider, as the wanderer. I never felt like I really fit in to a lot of what was going on from my, my people that my age, right? Yeah. going to the go-go's and doing this and doing that. And then even trying to get into the industry because of what I was doing and where I was from. The New York dudes would look at me weird, crazy, and then they would write me off. And then the DC dudes would look at me like, Slim, you doing that, bam? Like,
you're too hip hop.
Right. I wasn't hip hop enough, then I was too hip, so it was just really, so I always was dolo. I didn't have a crew. I would walk into the open mics, man. I many times almost got jumped. Almost got jumped up Maryland, right? I ran through some dudes up Maryland, almost got jumped. Wow. Trini was DJing, and then this dude that wound up being a hustler down a Mirage, down a chapter, wound up being there and escorting me out there, Joe. Like having this people's like, what I'm saying? Like it was like I was always, dolo,
Yeah.
And I'm an independent thinker, man. So, I don't really go with the masses. So I added the Nomad because that's just the way I felt. I felt like an outsider, wanderer, traveler, you know what I'm saying? So, and that's why my first EP on my own was called Travels, right? So, yeah, so that's so Priest the Nomad was always and even when I did stuff in the industry, I had offers to go a different route. And I was determined to keep my integrity and my character. So I already knew that I was limiting myself, but I was like, well, that's not going to be my path because I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do certain things to get on Bad Boy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, thank God right now.
Bro, right now.
I'm not going to do certain things to get in certain arenas because I'm not built like that. We're not built like that here. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, so my thing was just always keeping it true, keeping it real. So I just knew that I was going to have a very particular path and the Nomad. So
that's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope, brother. You've had a tremendous career, my man. I could talk with you for hours.
Appreciate it, man.
Being from DC myself, and I have one story I want to share with you before we wrap up. The first time I saw you perform live was like in 1995 or 96 at Adams Morgan Day Festival. And you know how they have multiple stages, and you were off to one of the stages on the side, right? So it wasn't like the main one, it was one of the ones on the side. But it was uncommon to see hip hop artists at one of those. Back in '96, especially in independent cats.
Storm were one of the
Storm
early cats.
And Storm may have
3LG cats like
there.
That.
But I remember I was just, there with some people, and I was the hip hop head always, and I was walking past, and I was like, y'all go ahead, I'm gonna watch this. and then at the end, I was like trying to figure, I was like, who was that? And I was like, and give it up for my man Priest the Nomad, and I was like, Priest the Nomad. I was like, I want to do that one day. I want to be at the Adams Morgan.
Dope.
I want to do that one day. Years later, like 10 years later, I rocked the Adams Morgan Day Festival with DJ E Boogie.
Yes.
DJ E Boogie.
Yes.
And
shout out E again.
Yeah, my brother. I wanted to share that story with you that I saw you, and that's when I saw you. And then later on, I recorded my first album at Depth Charge. So later on, all the players, you would hear about them and know about them. And Storm and Head Rock and Infinite Loop and obviously Team Demo. So for me, it's an honor to have you on here to talk about your story.
Honor to be here, man.
Thank you, brother. And I can't wait to see the documentary. I wish you Godspeed on that. I hope it comes out when the time is right and when it's ready. But you're doing something really special and capturing that.
Yeah, man. Thank you, man. Yeah, I think it's really about cementing us and our history here because as you know, DC has changed a lot. U Street is no longer the U Street that we help bring about it, and it's that's the evolution of things, right? It's a vibrant district now, but there's a whole thing, and a lot of the youth here are just really wilding out here. As in other cities as well. So it's like really making folks, these youngers, understand that they come from something. And there's a history, there's a rich history, and it ain't just go-go, right? That's one of the things that a lot of people know the go-go story, the go-go things, or they at least know that DC is known for go-go, but they don't know that there's such a vibrant and multifaceted art scene outside of go-go here. You know what I'm saying? and hopefully, through through what we're doing, the doc and other things to help shed a lot of light on that. So
That's dope, brother. I can't wait to watch it. When it comes out, I'm gonna
yes,
reach
sir.
out. We'll run it
Yeah,
back.
man. Yeah, man. That would be great, man. Definitely.
Thank you, my.
Appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you so much. Salute.
Yeah, man. Salute. Peace.
Peace.